We've got a full house here in this area for world politics, and a lot is going on the political landscape. And we'll definitely be talking about that and seeing what is happening. And one of the things that I can tell you, and I did say that I would be opening up with maybe a little bit of humor and some thoughts before we bring in our esteemed guests and get into these political discussions. But one of the things that was quite interesting is we do have people that are lining up their endorsements or dropping out of races. We do know that Mike Pence has dropped out, others have dropped out as well, but some are lining up their endorsements because apparently Rick Scott, a senator out of Florida, has thrown his endorsement behind Trump, and there are some other endorsements going on as well. But apparently people are targeting each other, and this is where I might be bringing some thoughts in and maybe even have some questions with definitely our great friend Rick Rosner, who is definitely involved in the entertainment lane and all along those lines. But apparently people are concerned about shoe size. And I'm trying to figure this out because one of the things that I was seeing was that they were concerned about the flats. And there's some people that are teasing DeSantis because DeSantis apparently is of a certain stature in the world and everything. And even Nikki Haley is giving him a hard time because apparently he's wearing some height adjusting shoes. So this is something that goes on in politics as well, is that sometimes people will be looking at the shoes and a number of other things in that way. You want your president apparently to look presidential, and maybe you can't look presidential if you're a certain height or all in that kind of way, and you've got to wear these shoes that might be like what some people would consider heels or all along those lines. So that's what I said when I said I might be bringing in some humor into this situation. I was also saying that there was a case here in North Carolina because we've got a number of races, including a race for governor, and we've got several candidates running. I know Josh Stein is running, but there is a gentleman running against Josh Stein, that being Judge Mike Morgan. And as I was talking to one of my friends who has done a political analyst and done some work in the political campaigns, and y'all have seen her before, that being Kelly Jones, and she may be joining us later as well. The campaign had already been announced because some of the announcements coming out were that he started his campaign. And I'm going like, no, I think he started his campaign back in September. But what I have since learned is that it was his first official campaign video, because videos are very important in a campaign as well. And apparently they were highlighting some of his growing up around the beaches of North Carolina and being part of the integration of schools back in the 60s and all along those lines, because I think he was born in like the mid 50s and in that space. But I'm going to bring in Rick, and I'm going to bring in some other folks as well, including Kim Calhoun and Jim Eade. We've got folks representing both the West Coast and or so some people like to call the left coast, and those that are representing the East Coast, or what some people like to call the right coast, because it definitely depends on how you decide to do your political conversations, even though North Carolina is a swing state and all along those kind of ways. But like I said, I'm going to bring in Rick Rosner because, like I said, videos can be very important and all along those lines. So that's why I mentioned the thing with this man that is running for governor here in North Carolina. We have another person running for governor that's got some very interesting views around the LGBTQIA community and a number of other things. And ironically, he may be a front runner. That is an African-American man that is running on the Republican ticket. And right now it's a front runner in the Republican ticket because he is the lieutenant governor here as well. And he's had some very interesting views, and I can pull them up, and then we can decide whether we agree with them or disagree with them. And by that way, that judge that I was referring to is also an African-American man as well. But, you know, the people would like saying he's launched his campaign, but what he actually did is he launched his video campaign. So what's your thoughts around video campaigns? And more importantly,
let me talk about DeSantis.
I was going to get to that too.
Because I've done the same thing. DeSantis is about 5'8", I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. But there hasn't been a president under 5'10" since Harry Truman, who was 5'9". And so DeSantis has blocks in his cowboy boots that give him another, 2 or 3 inches. I used to occasionally take tests for other people in my, 40 years ago, when, I could pass for a student.
Yeah.
And one time I had to passed for a guy who was 6'2", so I had to fill my cowboy boots with styrofoam blocks to give me another couple inches. And that's what, if you look at the video of DeSantis, that's what he's doing. He's got blocks in his shoes. He's not the only one. Trump wears the lifts that take him from about 6'1.5" to 6'3". So, people do it, but DeSantis is doing it. I'm sure Trump has expensive lifts that pretty much disguise it, but DeSantis is doing it very sloppily. And
it sounds like you're doing it sloppily. I did want to bring in our other folks. Like I said, we've got a full house and all along those lines. Like I said, we've got Jim Eade, and I would definitely know you've got some comments around that as well. So I'll let you make the comments. But I was going to bring in the leader of the network, who is definitely representing a female perspective. And
I wanted to make my comment
as well, and everything. So we're going to bring in Kim as well. And definitely, in addition to Kim, we've got a future president of the United States. He might even be running as early as this time. And I don't know if he's wearing lifts or not. So, Adam, are you having lifts on, or you're not going on the lift route and all in that space? We've also got a chess champion who is definitely a master of a lot of things, including finances, and comes to us all the way from Canada, that being none other than Sasha Starr. And, of course, we've got my good friend, Jacoby, that is representing Durham, North Carolina, as well, and he's actually on the road. Maybe he's on the road to send Mr. DeSantis some shoes. So he might be driving all the way down to Florida to deliver some shoes and all in that space. But we're going to find out where he's heading as he's on the road again, if I can borrow that song and all along those lines. You had some thoughts around this whole lift thing and everything that's going on, Jim, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I wanted to say it before Kim came on, but and I think Adam is actually sitting on a pillow. So he's using that height mechanism in a different way. But I think that, I used to wear shoes 2 sizes too big because I thought it impressed women. And so that was my cheating as far as shoes go. But the whole idea of this kind of artificial propping up, it's a toxic masculinity type of thing, and it's really silly. But what Rick pointed out is a fact. It's like it's also one of those things like, if your life is easier if you're prettier. People like you more if you're taller. These are kind of silly things if you sit and think about it, but it's true. And when you make a first impression on people, they go, oh yeah, I liked him, or I liked her, and they're kind of not, you can't hold up to scrutiny, but people their perceptions change based on those things. So can I fault them for doing it? No. Do I think it's silly? Yes. But when he says woke goes to Florida to die, he's forgetting that lots of people go to Florida to die. So
DeSantis is against is against trans people, and people on Twitter have pointed out that he's doing the same thing, that by wearing lifts, he's trying to make himself extra masculine, yet he's against other people, addressing issues of gender.
Wow. You guys are really something. So you start off the show personally insulting Republicans by talking about lifts. I mean, this is what liberals do. They can't argue.
We didn't talk about a single Republican. We talked about the
personal attacks.
I'm not talking about
DeSantis parties.
I thought you were talking about Trump.
We're talking about shoes. We're talking about shoes, Adam. Get your story straight.
And
is the Democrat wearing lifts? Bring it on.
I have a feeling, James, if I played you in chess, that I'd win.
Yeah, I really would accept that. A lot of your feelings.
I mean, after this conversation, how can I not?
Hold on. I will go after Democrats too. Joe Biden
learning how to say checkmate.
Hold on. Joe Biden has hair transplants. So do I. And Trump had surgery to reduce his bald spot. So, and I think Schumer also.
Childish.
I want to point something out.
So
One of the sexiest men in the world is shorter
Thank
than
you.
me. Tom Cruise. Okay.
Tom Cruise is short.
Tom Cruise is very powerful in the Hollywood industry. And look what he did, right? And literally, I've met him. He's my height,
He's short.
which is very short. So, 5'3". So I don't think height should matter. And that's one of the reasons why I always loved the TV show The Voice, because it was all based on pure talent, skill, and what people had in them. The people, weighing and measuring them, they weren't looking at them and seeing who they were here. They were hearing what they were here. And that's what we need to get back to. And we need to get back to the human side of it. And I understand we all want to look better. We all want to appear bigger and like we've got more than what we have. But in reality, we just need someone who has this. And, Jim, thank you for being honest about wearing bigger shoes. That's sweet.
Well, here's one of the latest things the panel needs to address. There are certain states that are attempting to throw Donald Trump off of the ballot, based on allegations that he was disrupting the election and he violated the 14th Amendment. Yeah. Now, notice, no court in the United States of competent jurisdiction has rendered Donald Trump guilty of any of this. What's happening is the states, sua sponte, have put on the ballot to not have his name on the ballot, basically convicting him without a trial, without a jury, without anything, except by voters of the public. Now, this is one reason the liberal agenda gets hurt.
I told you liberals were emotional. See,
they lie. Look, they lie. They cheat and they steal. And they are obviously, as you can see by what they're doing, attempting to steal the election. Actually, Donald Trump has a point.
Attempting to steal the election. That's brilliant.
Of course. I mean, the
irony is precious.
Nick is more
right. I love it. I love it. Keep it. They're trying to steal an election.
What can be more political than to throw your opponent off the ballot and convict him of things that he has not been convicted of?
Yes.
Without a trial. By the way, Adam, since you're an attorney, we know Jim is not. Mm-hmm. Don't we have in this country notice opportunity to be heard? And don't you have to be convicted before a jury, not be convicted by a bunch of
been thrown off the ballot anywhere, Nick? Has he been thrown off the ballot anywhere, Nick?
Jim, if you could please be quiet so we can listen to a learned attorney rather than a chess player wannabe.
You're 100% right, Nick. And the charges against
Trump smoking something not tobacco
are frivolous. And I find it quite ironic that our left-wing friends who constantly preach about the value of democracy are oh so willing to see Trump thrown off the ballot. The hypocrisy is typical of the left. They don't believe in democracy. They are the fascists. And it's really upsetting. If you did this in Russia, really, you'd be in a lot of trouble. You're lucky that the United States tolerates this kind of disrespect. But I believe in democracy and I believe in the First Amendment. Nothing that Trump did even remotely approaches an insurrection. He was exercising his First Amendment right. And that is how this case will be resolved. It was a protest that he said should be conducted peacefully, and he did nothing that even comes close to the original meaning or even an involved meaning of an insurrection under the Constitution. He'll be on the ballot. Democracy will survive. And I know our left-wing friends will be disappointed, but I believe in democracy, and I'm sorry that you don't.
Oh, thank you, Counselor.
It's kind of a moot point.
Comments from Canada, so we need to hear from Canada. Hold on, we need to hear from Canada. So,
mention just very short line. Trump is the only reason why Biden runs, because Trump is the only person in the world that Biden can defeat, even if he will be half dead, half alive. He will defeat him easily. Now, if Trump is not running, then it's a different story, and we'll see how it develops. Right now, of course, Biden will run to defeat him. Just one more time, okay?
And that we've heard from Canada and everything. I think Jacoby was trying to say something as well, so I'm going to bring Jacoby in and everything. So, Jacoby, were you trying to make some comments earlier? And then I will.
Okay, the comment that I was going to make earlier was about was about the height of DeSantis and him doing the platform shoes, because evidently Tu Wong Fu might be getting ready for a part 2, and DeSantis could be trying out for that because he's not going to make president. He's a horrible individual, and he's already made Florida a destination that nobody wants to go to, especially if you're a minority, because of his policies. In terms of Trump has committed crimes. Hence the reason he has 4 indictments plus, including 90 plus charges against him. More to come. And the fact that you're trying to say that, oh, well, he was just exercising his constitutional right. Well, he doesn't have a constitutional right to place in fake electors to overturn the election.
Oh, really?
No, right. That's an actual scheme to overthrow the election. And to say anything otherwise shows partisanship and the fact that you're trying to parrot talking points. So those are my quick points real quick.
Well, I'm going to respond to Jacoby because I really like Jacoby and I respect his opinion. But first of all, number one, the First Amendment protects offensive speech, unpopular speech, because we're supposed to create a marketplace of ideas here in the United States.
That's why
the only
you're
limits on the First Amendment under Miller versus California is obscenity, and under Brandenburg versus Ohio is incitement to imminent violence. If you read the transcript of Trump's speech, it does not even approach the Brandenburg standard and certainly cannot be considered obscene. It's protected First Amendment speech, and the people who champion democracy, well, you have to champion the First Amendment when you want to the least. That is a true patriot. And as far as Ron DeSantis goes, you may not like Ron DeSantis, but like most politicians, they do some good things, they do some bad things. What I see from liberals is constantly this black and white thinking. You're all good, you're all bad. People are more complicated than that. Situations like the one in Russia, like the one in Israel, are more complicated than that. So I think what we need is a more moderate and balanced view, because that's what brings people together, and that's what leads to compromise.
Hey,
I want to go to Adam.
I still like
Adam's way of thinking about, we should, test people before they're allowed to vote. I think we should do the same test on people before they're allowed to even run for presidency. If they're incompetent, then they shouldn't be allowed to run. If they can't, recite some of the historical things or even recite the amendments, they don't need to be running. But the important thing here to learn is that I don't think any of them qualify. None of them. I don't think red or blue qualifies, and I think all of this stuff is utter drama nonsense by men who don't have anything better to do.
Hey, Kim, along those lines of qualifying and
just
everything,
to point out,
what is your thoughts? Should those qualifications be in not just the national level, but also on our state and local levels as well? Because I mentioned a race that is going on in the governorship, and I'm not going to talk about the situation from your perspective and everything, but I know that there are candidates that are running that you might not be all that favorable of because of certain situations that exist. And if you want to talk about that, that's on you. I'm not going to fill your coffee and everything, but that kind of way. But do you think that we should be talking about the candidates on the local and the state level as well, in the sense of being qualified to run, and how do we determine who is qualified?
Well, I think if they have prejudice against certain people, they shouldn't qualify.
Yeah, that's the problem. The problem is that
Hey, wait a minute, Adam. Wait a minute. Rick had his hand up way before I had my hand up. Time for you to button it up.
So throwing Trump off the ballot is kind of a moot point because it probably won't survive the Supreme Court, even if it does, which is low probability. Most of the states that would throw him off the ballot, Trump wouldn't win anyway. Thing one. Also, thing two, you were talking about local politicians. Starting in about 2010, the Republican National Party realized that they could own American politics by focusing on local and state level candidates. They came up with a thing called Red Map, and they took over a zillion state legislatures. They figured out state legislatures control a lot of democracy, and it's much cheaper to elect a state level politician or a local politician than it is to elect a national level politician. So local matters.
Yep. Jim, you had a thought and everything?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is that it's funny how only one side here, like an elitist snob like Nick and like Adam, are talking about lefts, and nobody's coming on here and attacking right. And the extreme right wing is the problem in the Congress right now. They can't even, couldn't even elect their own speaker. So, but the thing is we're trying to talk about compromise. We're trying to work across the aisles. And when you come on here and you say the left this, the left that, it's counterproductive to what we're trying to promote. You got to lead by example and say to the other people, like, I will listen to you. And if you're articulate and making good points, I might change my mind. The
name of your show, by the way.
When you're talking to people in the way that Adam was talking to, the way that Nick was talking to, like, I'm not a lawyer, come on, that's just depressingly sad.
Can I respond to this?
You can when I'm done, Adam.
Vicious attack.
You keep shooting your mouth off when other people are talking. It's not going to work. This is the way we have to listen to one another, and it works this way very simply. You get a chance to talk, I get a chance to talk. And then we can debate and come to a compromise. But you insulted me. Nick insulted me. And I'm not crying a river of tears.
You are so full of it. And the epitome of shooting your mouth off.
Adam, you got to shut your mouth when other people are talking. It's simple. Yeah, mute them. Gosh. Yeah, I don't know how many times we're going to run into this problem, but I hope it's fewer and fewer. The idea here is pretty simple. We have difference of opinions, express them politely. And then when we come to a meeting of minds, which is possible, I think Adam and I agree on many things, and sometimes we don't, but the inflammatory language that is being used, and, when we talk about the left, like that's, they used to use the word liberal, which is the root of that is liberty, and that was a bad thing. So now we changed to progressives. It's kind of silly. What we really have here is a difference of opinion that's been inflamed by people like Donald Trump. And what we need is to elect people that are trying to work with each other. And it's not Ron DeSantis, who's trying to be Trump light. But Nikki Haley is a good, regular Republican. And I don't know why people aren't throwing their support behind her. You're muted, Adam.
Oh, you're on mute, Adam.
You began this show by insulting Trump and DeSantis. You're a serial interrupter of people on the show when they express their opinions. So the nerve of you to claim that I'm being inflammatory, you just proved my point. I do believe that when you talk about inflammatory rhetoric, let's look at college campuses all across the country. Let's look at how liberal academia has become and how hostile it's become and how anti-Semitic it's become. Let's look to students. Let's look to politicians on both sides who have become extreme. And the problem, and not to mention the media, of course, which is uniformly liberal, the problem is that people really aren't interested in coming to common ground and recognizing that the problem is not just with the other side, it's with both sides. And it takes a true leader to come together and to come together in the middle. And I'm willing to do that, and I'm willing to listen to you because I realize I'm not always right, and I certainly have a lot to learn. But to do that, you have to recognize that you often are guilty of the very thing that you're accusing me of. And unless we have that self-awareness, we're not going to be able to come together. We have to realize we're both imperfect, and we have to try to have a more perfect union by recognizing that and compromising and coming together, which I think we can, James.
Just really quickly, and I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts, and maybe even Rick has some thoughts around this, or Kim, because I've been hearing this for a while now, ever since that horrible October 7th attack and everything. And as I've said before, I've seen some conservative voices on the certain campuses. I've definitely seen some liberal voices as well. So I personally don't think it is fair to stereotype all campuses as being these bastion of liberalism and all in that space, because I think that there are some conservative voices that are in some of those campuses as well. And I've even seen, even in the Jewish community, some Jews that have been working for peace in the Middle East. There's a whole group that has been arrested multiple times that is asking for that ceasefire fire that is out of New York and everything. So that's the one thing I was going to bring to the forefront and everything. And last but not least, and y'all can agree or disagree, but we had a gentleman on, Sasha knows the gentleman I'm going to talk about, and he was actually talking about another elephant in the room that we haven't dealt with, and Sasha deals with it on his show quite a bit, but Mr. Pruden, who was a defense strategist similar to our own Jonathan Lockhart, and Jonathan's last name and everything, but he is very much of the concern that China is something that we need to be paying attention to on the political front as well. So we had a very deep show on that subject today and all along those lines. But is this something that you're worried about? I know that, Adam, you are very pro Russia, but are you worried at all about the China situation? Because that is what Mr. Pruden was talking about. Here to Toby's thoughts to what I said earlier, because I think it's unfair to make these conversations around the what's going on the campus. Because last time I checked, whether it was the 60s, the 70s, or a number of other things, campuses are a place for public discourse, and we don't have to agree with them all the time. There have been students that I have not agreed with on the abortion issue that have been very forthright on their opinion on the campus. But Toby, I'll let you take it away and your thoughts around that.
So I missed a couple of the bits jumping in and out. However, just to point out, James is spot on when you're talking about. I mean, Adam, there's a term called. There's an old adage: a hit dog will holler. So, James, you're spot on. Nobody's talking about left and right, Adam. Everybody's talking about individuals and the problems that these individuals are causing for others. And when you want to talk about, oh, the left this, the left that, that doesn't help any part of the conversation. And that's actually denying the facts of an individual who is the head of a particular party at this moment. For example, Trump. When I'm talking about Trump, who is the head of the Republican Party, you shouldn't be mad at me. You should be mad at Trump because he is the head of your party who's pushing out white supremacist talking points. He's the one hosting anti-Semitic leaders in Mar-a-Lago. So it's not, don't get mad at James or anybody else. Get mad at Trump. He's the one doing these bad things. But for you to actually say, the left, well, you're ignoring the fact that this man is doing wrong. What Kim pointed out earlier in the chat, how we were talking about breaking laws. Yeah, Daddy. I apologize myself. We didn't even mention the fact that he is a convicted sexual abuser. Convicted. Not that he is accused of it. He's been convicted, yet he's the leader of your party. So instead of, again, getting mad at anybody else, complaining the left is this, no, the leader of your party is a sexual abuser. The man who is going to be head of the House should have been arrested for child molestation. The individual, Jim Jordan, should be in jail for his role in the sexual abuse case at Ohio State. The man who's actually now the leader of the House, he is from Louisiana, but is a election denier and was the head architect who actually brought the case up in Texas. So don't give me the left this. The extremism that is happening in your party, clean your party out before you complain about mine.
Okay, can I respond to this? First, and I promise you'll be as quick as I can. First, I am not a Republican, okay? I am an independent, and I do not support Trump. Second, many times on this show, the only people that you all are attacking are Republicans. And I'm not getting mad at James. I'm pointing out the fact that the hypocrisy of you trying to say, oh, you shouldn't be saying the left this, the left that. The uniform attacks on Republicans are so blatant on this show. The progressivism or liberalism in academia is so pervasive, and the discrimination against conservatives is so blatant, and in the media. So when you talk about Russia, I hope you guys have realized that really what I've been talking about Russia is really a metaphor. It's not that I support Russia. What I'm trying to tell you is that situations and people are far more complicated than Republican or Democrat, good or evil. Everything really is in a complicated gray area. And the only way that we're ever going to compromise is by stopping with these categorical distinctions between Putin bad, U.S. good. Liberal versus it's recognizing that people are complicated and that all people are flawed, but yet all people do good things too. And to compromise, you have to recognize that we're flawed. You have to be humble and you have to listen. That's what I'm advocating for, and I haven't seen it from any of you.
You are not advocating for that. You are not.
Yes, I am.
You're completely self-unaware, Adam. Sorry.
I'm self-unaware. When you start the show attacking,
unaware, Adam, and you're basically a con man.
Hold on a second.
I'm a con man, so you can personally
You are a
insult me.
con man.
Hold on. Time out.
Saying one thing and doing another.
Time out. Breathe. Time out. Because I think Rick had a point. The only thing I was going to say to your point, Adam, as I actually started off the show, and I even said that I was starting off the show with what I consider to be, and I'm not the comedian that Shelby is, some lighthearted humor, because I brought up the shoe incident because I found that to be funny, just like I found the fact that a man that is already running for governor, and given he's running on the Democratic side, that people are thinking that he is running now because of the video, because it's the first video campaign 2 months after he had already announced. So I'm going like, the man's already announced. So to me, that's something that should have been not people thinking that he's running now, but I understand the power of the media. So because it's his first official video, folks are like, he's running for governor. The man's been running since September and everything. But that's where I was going. And by the way, that is a Democrat. And to be perfectly fair, and I want to hear from Rick and then Jacoby and everything. But to be perfectly fair on this show and other shows, I know I have said, and other people have said things that were maybe in favor of quote unquote the squad, but we have also held the squad accountable for some things that they have said as well. I know I've done it on my show and other people have done it too. I think even Jim has said some things that he felt were needed to be addressed by the quote unquote squad, which is the liberal side of politics or the progressive side, to use that more correct word and everything. But like I said, it's Rick first, Jim, and then we have been joined, and I'm glad to be joined by Kelly, who's actually done some campaigning on the political front. So she may have some thoughts as well, because she's actually worked on a number of campaigns. So definitely, like I said, it is, I think it was Rick first, and then no, Jim first, then Jacoby, then Rick.
Rick was up.
Rick's up.
All right. No doubt we're more polarized now. Pew Research did a study a few years ago that showed that Republican politicians have drifted to the right 4 times as much as liberals have drifted to the left. The right has definitely become more loony, according to this study, and I think according to common sense. Now, on campuses, the loudest voices are the craziest voices. Most people going to school are just interested in getting good grades, getting drunk, getting laid, not being politically indoctrinated. And they're taking class. I went to the University of Colorado, which is a science and engineering school. And there was not a lot of indoctrination in the differential equations classes that I kept flunking. And one more thing, I don't think there's any way to feel about Israel, Gaza, that doesn't make you seem like a jerk to a lot of people. It's an intractable, terrible issue. You know, Hamas are terrorists, they need to be obliterated. Netanyahu's is Israel's Trump, and the West Bank settlers are constantly taunting the Palestinians and taking more and more land. So it's a big, complicated mess.
Okay.
I think it was Jacoby's turn, then Jim's, or was it Jim's next?
Me? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
basically, painting all of the universities with one brush is the type of generalization that serves no purpose, and it's intellectually disingenuous. There are people on the campuses that are definitely not people that I would want to associate. There's people that I agree with but don't want to associate with, and then there's people that I really like and don't like me. And so it's a mixed bag. And to paint them all as like they're this or they're that, it's just not productive at all. And when we come on about this right versus left stuff. I don't think that that's very productive. I do think that we have to point out extremists when there are extremists, and I think I'm really sick of saying there's wackos on both sides, because one side has had the wackos take it over, so that's different. It's not the same. You can't draw an equivalency between the two. I would say 20 years ago, if you said there are wackos on both sides, I would have said yes. But starting with the Tea Party and then starting with Donald Trump, adding on to it, gasoline on the fire, the right-wing part of the Republican Party started to become more and more powerful and to take it over. And now people aren't even primary. Good, solid people like Governor Sununu of New Hampshire don't even run because they won't win. They know they won't win because they're not crazy enough. And if you look up his conservative background, he's right on as a conservative. I won't agree with him on a lot of policies, but man, the guy is a standard bearer, but he won't win. He's not crazy enough. Nikki Haley has no shot. I don't think. Maybe she does. Maybe somebody will throw a bunch of money and she'll get in a race. But, no. We got guys like Don DeSantis coming on and trying to be Trump light. Just who's wackier? And that's the way otherwise you get defeated in primaries, and they threaten you. They're very clear about this. If you don't vote with us, you won't win in the we'll primary you. We'll put somebody up against you. And so the moderate Republicans, the Republicans that I used to grow up with and debate, they're vanishing. So don't draw me this false equivalency of, everybody's wacky on both sides. It's not true.
Mute Adam, you got to get off and mute Adam. And then
don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. Let him go on and on.
Oh, shoot.
I got you.
I hope that the
It's
audience.
Toby's
I was
turn.
next. Hold on. I was next. Adam, where are you going when I was next?
Toby was next.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
I'm
in
sorry,
line.
Jacoby.
Toby's
Go
next,
ahead.
then you, Adam.
Here's a bad joke. Just like a
Jacoby.
normal Republican these days wants to jump over the black man. So,
No.
the way it is
Don't go there.
today, Jim, you are spot on. The extremists of the party have taken over the party. Marjorie Taylor Greene is now a moderate Republican, and she is nuts. Lauren Boebert is a moderate Republican, and she is nuts. And so those individuals that, Jim, you're speaking of, the most extreme Democrat, if you even take the squad is if you anything comparable on the other side is not even close to a Marjorie Taylor Greene or not even close to a Lauren Boebert. The squad, their big thing was the Green New Deal. If you take off the title of Green New Deal and talk about the policies on the inside, most people want what's in the Green New Deal. So if you talk about what Marjorie Taylor Greene wants, the death penalty for particular things, for simple law things, if you want to talk about Nick and dealing with litigation and lawyer stuff, when you start with the bare minimum punishment as a death penalty, that's extreme. And that's the moderate Republican Party at this moment. And that's the sad part. Until we can be honest. And Adam, what you were talking about earlier, and this is where it gets down to where I'm saying you are not pulling for, you are not trying to be this standard barrier of benevolence on being fair on both sides. No, you are doing the exact same everything everybody else is doing. And you claiming that, hey, well, you're talking about Republicans. No, we're talking about personalities that are leading a party that are being very extreme. And if we're honest about that, you would agree that the policies that they are pushing, the death penalty for a starting punishment on, say, on whatever she was talking about, or Jewish space lasers, her anti-Semitism that she's never apologized for, but now she wants to censor somebody else who's actually apologized for something that they've said. It's crazy. And take, for instance, right now with the Republican Party, what they're trying to put up in terms of the Israeli aid. Oh, my goodness. Oh, every Republican couldn't get to a microphone fast enough to say, hey, we should support Israel. But now Mike Johnson's gotten up there and said, hey, we'll support Israel if and only if we get these cuts. So wait a second. Are you really wanting to? That's an extremist position. And we should be able to call them out instead of diving into our tribal politics and saying, well, my side is always correct. Well, no, your side is always. That's not true. No side has every answer. And that moderate Republican is gone because they're pushed out and called rhinos, primaried against, just like Jim was talking about earlier. And just like Rick was saying, yeah, that moderate, that's no longer there. The extremist is there, and that's where we get into this problem where we can't even talk. We can't even have a conversation and talk about humanity going on. The problem with what's going on, they just bombed the same refugee camp a second time. And you know what people want to say? Well, okay, they should go after them again. What about the Palestinian people? How can we forget the people? If we talk about we care about the people, oh, yes, everybody's upset about the beheading of children and all this, but does that mean dropping a bomb on children is just fine? No, it's doing the same thing. Vengeance begets vengeance. Evil begets evil. We cannot get into this cycle where we're just murdering people over and over, and just because you're on my side and they're on your side, I should be able to champion them all. No, that's not it. And so when, again, Adam, when you say you want to be on this both sides trend, be able to admit that, yeah, what Trump is doing is wrong. Don't sit there and say, well, those are
Hold on a second. Before I get to Rick, and before you answer and everything. Hold on. Before you do that, I did want to bring Kelly in, and actually somebody had mentioned the fact of whether there is liberalism or non-liberalism on the campus and all along those lines. So I know Kelly has worked on some of those campuses, including around UNC and everything. So, and has worked on some political campaign. So Kelly, do you think that the students are more liberal, or do you think, like I do, that there are both liberals and conservatives that exist on the campus? But I'd love to hear your thoughts and just the thoughts around the conversation in general.
Okay, I think there are definitely liberals and conservatives on campus. I think that the question is who has the loudest voice, the greatest passion. When we went to some of the universities, we were seeing like maybe 10, 15 students at a major rally. At UNC, the UNC Democratic, the UNC Democrats, we had a major event, rally to the polls, and I think there were maybe 7 people there. So I think a part of it is, and today, so we're talking about something major with voting, but today, while Hillary Clinton is teaching, students walked out because students' names were exposed who wrote again, who did an they were upset because they published the students' names who were against I think it was an something that happened in Israel. I can't remember right now, but the bottom line is students were passionate enough to walk out of a class and make a stance. And I think that right now what we're getting is students will engage, whether it be liberal or conservative. I mean, we have a lot of students that, believe it or not, are still in the middle. I think a part of the problem is, guess what? We're not creating a story for them to follow behind. Like when Trump was running, and once again, I'm not Republican, but I have to say he's a marketing genius. He gave you a story to follow behind. We're not doing that. We're not creating those points of engagement. And as you say, we've got a high suicide rate among students. We've got I'm talking about college students. We have a high rate of depression, a high rate of anxiety, even with athletes. So because they're busy, they don't have time to figure out all the details. They don't have time to figure out all the minutia. Give them the points, give them a story, give them something that they can work with, and they will get engaged and they will get excited about it. But they're not engaged. And yes, there is a strong presence of conservatives. There is a strong presence of liberals. I think one of the things that will surprise individuals is that the presence of conservative people or Trumpers on some of your HBCUs is a lot larger than you think. So some people think, oh, well, we're automatically going to get that vote. Democrats are going to get that vote. Not true. Because we had the campaign at the, at the homecomings and stuff like that last year, and 2022, last year. And no, there are quite a few Trumpers out there. So until somebody can find a way to create a story that will engage people, people still remember Elizabeth Warren going on Saturday Night Live or someplace and drinking beer. I mean, that was the big thing, that she drank beer. So you got to find something, believe it or not, and that is so minute. But if it gets people to the polls, look, give everybody a couple beer. I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying, realistically, we've got to find a way. Yes, they are active. They are passionate. They will vote. We just don't have a story to excite them.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting point and everything. I think definitely want to hear from Rick. Sasha, I don't know about.
I'll keep this very brief. I hope that the audience is paying attention to what has gone on this show. I have been accused of having essentially being purely black and white in my thinking, being an extreme Republican. Well, while on this show, the actions of every panelist who has done that has been guilty of precisely that. Every single criticism has been against, the extreme right wing, the extreme Republicans, Donald Trump. Not one comment has been directed at extreme elements of the Democratic Party, at the extremism on campuses, and the incredible bias in the media. They are doing precisely what they're accusing me of. And I'm the one who has sat here on this show repeatedly and said, of course I believe in moderation and compromise. I believe in a Palestinian state. I'm pro-choice. I'm against the death penalty. I believe in progressive taxation. Okay, and I certainly am willing to compromise, but you guys accuse me in a condescending manner of acting in this way, yet every comment you've made on this show has been uniformly against conservatives with no recognition that your party has been guilty of precisely the same
Hold on a
thing.
second. Hold on a second. Adam. I have to make
And Jacoby, for you to make a racial comment saying the white man is trying to jump on the black man and referring to me, you should apologize.
Adam, if you listen
I
to
will
me,
not apologize
You
for
should
a joke
apologize.
that somebody
I don't
has
think you'll express the same humility that I've shown.
Here's a
Adam, if
tissue
you
for your
listen to
issue.
me, what I did is I said, Adam, listen to me. I said that the left went out and is trying to get rid of Donald Trump by convicting him of things that he has not been convicted of. Jacoby mistakenly put two facts to the table. Number one, he believes indictments are convictions. They are not.
I did
So
not say that, Nick. So don't put words in my mouth. I did not say indictments are convictions.
He
He
could have
was convicted of sexual
They asked
abuse.
me to listen, but they won't listen.
Convicted of
Notice
sexual
that.
abuse. So
It
fix the
doesn't matter
facts
how
on that
many
one, Nick.
indictments. There's no convictions except for the sexual harassment.
Oh, thank you. So you
Which
agree he
does
was
not
convicted. We're done
apply.
here.
Okay, if Jacoby would listen rather than talk, it does not apply to 14th Amendment claims. So this is the left going out of control. So this panelist certainly did not jump on the bandwagon of the right. Okay. Then another factual mistake Jacoby made. He said people were leaving in Florida. That is not true. They're leaving California, the place where Rick Rosner from the left and Jim Eade from the left think it's so wonderful. And they're actually moving to Florida. Go look at the facts, Jacoby. The net migration gain is in Florida, the state I'm hailed from, not California, the two liberal states that you love so much. People are abandoning because of their poor tax and liberal policies, and they're moving to Florida. Go Florida.
Hey, Nick, hold on a second. I have to make a correction. I have to make another correction as well. Because you said something. Hold on a second, but I want to hear from you, Jacoby. But you also made a misstatement and an incorrect statement as well. Because if I heard correctly, and this is something that Adam has brought up before, because he has predicted that there might be a bigger boost in the African American population from Trump supporters. And if I heard Kelly correctly, she said that in her going around campaigns that she has noted that there is a rise of the vote of Trump supporters, even on the HBCU campuses. I believe that she actually backed your standpoint and everything, Adam. So I have to make that correction because, like I said, I've not been on this campus. She's actually been on those campuses. And if I heard her correctly, she did actually say there has been a boost of the rise of Trump supporters on the campaign. Did I hear you correctly, Kelly?
You did hear me correctly.
All right, let me talk about California. About 1% of Californians have left because it's expensive to live here and there's an affordable housing shortage. So our own success, so many people here making a buttload of money has, made it you need a buttload of money to live here because there are so many successful people just driving up the prices of real estate and other things.
Just to point out, and I wish Nick was better at doing facts because he seems to just toss out talking points and then disappear in the background. But again, as pointed out in an article, Channel News number 8, and Nick, I know you're in the background, so I'll post this link. Channel News number 8, posted October 21st, 2023. The Census Bureau released new data this week showing the state-by-state migration trends last year. You know what? 490,000 people left Florida. Oh my goodness. Is that contradictory to what Nick just said? That I was wrong?
That's almost exactly the number who left California, but Florida has only 60% of the population. So proportionately, more people left Florida.
And then on top of that, the number one destination for leaving Florida is going to Georgia. So Nick, next time you point out facts, get them right. Also, when you said that I said indictments were convictions, again, quote me correctly. I said indictments, and there were 90 plus charges. So that's not what I said. The only thing I said he was convicted of was the sexual abuse. So if you would like to, as you agreed with, and that's what Kim pointed out. So unless you want to say that I am wrong, Kim is wrong, Jim is wrong, the others here are wrong, you can come back on and say that if you'd like. But again, we have facts, and the facts are on our side.
So Toby,
he
you
wasn't
apologize for that
convicted of-
racist attack on me? Are you prepared to apologize?
I don't care about what you say. You're making up this whole racist attack like you're hurt. So I don't care. We can
You're
shut
the
that
one who
down.
said
Let's
it.
move to Jim. Or I'm sorry, let's move to Rick.
So Trump wasn't convicted of sexual. He was found liable he was found culpable for libeling a woman, E. Jean Carroll, who said that he raped her. So the judge found that they found him guilty of sexual assault, not rape, because she was face to the wall and she didn't know what was penetrating her, and it had to be, but definitely penetrative sexual assault. And I want to talk about what the House wants in terms of aid for Israel. They want $14 billion aid for Israel, but only if $14 billion is cut from the increased funding for the IRS. But the Office of Management and Budget has found that by cutting that $14 billion from the IRS, the U.S. will lose $27 billion in legitimate tax revenue from rich people cheating on their taxes.
Let's talk a little bit about the money that they want to spend and the way that they want to spend it right now and how that impacts us. I mean, we've got them going forward and saying, let's establish 100 million or billion. I mean, the number keeps rotating towards, foreign aid, and foreign aid being supporting wars based on particular sides. And they're talking about taking the money from our tax money, but that's our tax money. Why are we not taking that money and putting it towards our army? And if we need to go after world terrorists together, unite and go after world terrorists. Send our Navy SEALs. We've done it before, but we need to be building our army. I mean, years ago, I read where Putin had been, helping Mexico beef up their arms. And getting more and more weapons. So, I mean, we need to be taking a look at what's in our best interest, not what's in the world's best interest at this moment, but what's in ours.
Kim, the only challenge with that is that we still need alliances, and we need places where we can have military stations. So if we have an opportunity to build within other countries as, strategic partners, it does help us in the long run. Now, how much of a build? Yeah, there can be some some dialogue with regards to that. But keep in mind, we need those alliances. We need those international alliances because we can't be everywhere.
And
Well, I understand we need alliances, but you can do alliances without having to give out so much money and build your alliances as if, working together. But to sit there and give them money that we really don't have, we're complaining about a debt GDP that we can't even run our own country right. And we need to pull that together before we go out and help other people.
So just to touch on what Kelly's saying, because Kelly is spot on. I mean, we are a global society at this moment. There's so much going on in the world. And yes, we have to have alliances. We just can't, I mean, yes, throwing money out there or putting money to particular places for humanitarian aid, for helping build society, that's what we need to do more of. Because we cannot live in this isolationist world and expect, everybody's going to bow down or listen to us. And if something happens to us, we're expecting other people to come to our aid just as we come to theirs. So alliances are necessary. It's the same thing as living in a neighborhood. If you're good friends with your neighbors and something happens to your house, yes, your neighbors are going to come and help you. And that's what you want to be in a global society. And that's why, working together with these other places and thinking about our military, we have a surplus in a lot of ways in our military in a lot of ways. We have tanks sitting out in a desert right now that are being unused. We have military supply companies selling off old things that we can't even use anymore. Why? Because we have such a surplus. So yes, building ours up is fine. Also, foreign aid is fine. We cannot be this shining beacon on the hill all alone. We live in a world with other people.
And I agree. We can build alliances by working together, but giving them hundreds of millions of dollars is not the way to do it. We don't need to be giving money to help fight their wars. We need to be building alliances and working together to go after terrorists. That's what we need to do.
But the thing is, how? If we're going for humanitarian aid, that's money. If we're going for military supply, that's money. Everything that we do cannot just be this, hey, they need cell phones, let's ship cell phones. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly. We can't be giving them money all the time and stuff all the time.
What I'm saying is we cannot just say they need cell phones, so let's ship them cell phones. What about the infrastructure? Is the infrastructure set for cell phones? No, we got to build that out now. So that costs money.
Exactly.
So we have to ship money. It's one of those things that's part of our society.
The U.S.
But they don't need that money for war. We can go after the terrorists together. The things that they're asking money for, we don't need to be giving money for.
The U.S.
I think
has
we need to be putting that money towards our country, towards our humanitarian needs. Personally, I would rather wait, and people know how I feel about this, but I would rather waste our money on a stupid Trump wall, which I am totally against, than waste our money giving it to people that are using it for war.
But again, you have places like Ukraine that are in the middle of a war. How do you get them help? Do you just say, hey, we're going to stand here, or we're going to fight the war for you? Because then that's World War III.
No, you're not fighting the war for them. They should be going after the terrorists. I thought that's what they were doing, going after the terrorists.
But Russia's a government.
Oh, that's Russia. We're talking about Russia. I'm talking about giving aid to Israel right now.
The other thing is, as we send our troops abroad, we need to make sure that we're putting a hedge around them, or putting a hedge of support around them. So if we're not building up allies, then we're sending our troops out there and we're making them more vulnerable. So it's sending out dollars to alliances to once again make sure that we maintain alliances, but 2, to protect our troops. And then 3, I don't know if you heard about something called Art of War, but it's basically understanding your enemy better than you understand as well as you understand your allies. And if you don't understand your enemies, or how can we understand our enemies being in such in a distant place? So if we can form alliances elsewhere that can navigate through things for us so that we understand what our enemy's doing, so we understand certain social tactics and stuff like that, then once again, we are better preparing our troops for safety and for an opportunity to return home.
The U.S. has 800 military bases on foreign soil. Under Trump, we started pulling back, and China stepped forward to become the world's friend. So a lot of this foreign spending is, if we want to continue to be the world's dominant nation, if we're going to have to be the parents who pick up the tab when the family goes out to dinner, if we're okay with no longer being the world's dominant nation, then yeah, we can pull back.
Well, I think it's a little bit complicated in the sense that we'll take a look at our recent history, and we had a good alliance internationally under Obama, and then even our allies didn't trust us under Trump. And Biden has put together the NATO alliance again and has strengthened it. And so I really agree with the idea of working with your allies, and being nice to them and kind to them is part of that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you give them millions of dollars. But what it means is that you take in their interest as well as yours when you're negotiating solutions to problems that are out there. And this is not something that we have done well historically as a country. We have not taken in the interest of the countries that we've been in, occupying, taking their resources, whatever it is that we've been doing around the world. We have not been very good at thinking about, well, hey, what do these people want? And how do I work with them instead of exploit them? And these types of things are very delicate. And you can play it very well, as Obama did. And I think you can play it very poorly, as Trump did. We were untrusted, and after the Trump administration, by our allies. And we were trusted again after Joe Biden rebuilt it. Now, do I want a younger man representing the principles of Joe Biden that works across the aisle and can draw in these alliances? Yes. But what we're stuck with is our choices. And I don't see a better choice going forward. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to be turning my brain off and thinking, where's the Democratic, handle that I can pull? No, it's just that, it's a question of choice, what we're left with. And I wish the Republicans would get their act together and nominate somebody who has common sense. I keep saying Governor Sununu. I could live with Nikki Haley. There are people out there, but they're becoming fewer because they have been taken over by the MAGA hat wearers. And they're going to lose a few more elections before they learn their lesson. And hopefully they will. And we could have two parties that can start to cooperate and pass legislation that helps the country, helps the citizens, which is what they're there to do. Thanks.
Biden and the Democrats are generally a centrist party, and they've been able to become centrist because the Republicans have moved so far right. Progressives, like lefty liberals, hate Biden. They're furious with his policies. Biden is pretty much Eisenhower in most of his policies, just a center, which is not a bad place to be.
The sad part of the whole situation also is the fact that, as Biden's trying to bring back these alliances, those alliances still are going to be untrustworthy at this moment due to exactly what you're talking about, both Jim and Rick, how, they need to get their act together. Because if you look at the House, again, right now, the House GOP doesn't want to give Ukraine aid. Well, Ukraine, we're trying to be an ally with. But, the House GOP or the Republican Party doesn't want to give any aid to Ukraine. The GOP, as I pointed out earlier, Mike Johnson's big push for Israel aid is if everybody kowtows to what the extremists position that they want to do domestically. It has nothing to do with what's going on in Israel, but it has everything to do with what they want to push through domestically. So
This current House has enacted 19 pieces of legislation, which is less than 20% of the previous least effective House in history. We're getting nothing done.
Our credit rating has dropped. Well, has been under attack because you have government shutdown. You have, we can't pass a budget and all that. We might not even get a budget, and that's supposed to happen in what, 2 weeks? So we might have another shutdown just because the Republican Party.
Compromise.
And this is where the funny part is that they tried when they were running through the 17 now 18 trying to find a House Speaker. They were pushing through, hey, well, it's really the Democrats who really threw us under the bus. No, it was Matt Gaetz, a person in your party, that decided to take out McCarthy. It was nobody. There was nobody in the Democrat Party that was going to vote for a Republican. I mean, that's normal politics. It's not going to happen. They put up their person, and 5 Republicans could have voted for Hakeem Jeffries. If you look at all the amount of votes that everybody got, Hakeem Jeffries got the most out of every vote getter there. But sadly, you got to get to 217, which you don't have that number in the Democrat Party, and 5 Republicans wouldn't join with the Democrats. But no, it's the Democrats' problem. They're the ones who, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. And if we are honest, and Adam, I know you're taking over next. If we are honest, then you would be willing to admit that was a Republican flaw. Same thing with Tommy Tuberville. Tommy Tuberville is holding up promotions in the military, all because of some extremist position he holds.
And these are all very good points that we're going to have to discuss on the next World Politics edition. Right now, we're out of time, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us and being here and working out all of these political issues that we're currently dealing with today, and just having an open discussion about them. Because this is what's great is that when we put things on the table like this that other people are too afraid to discuss, we're able to understand how other people think and where things are going. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. Everyone, have a blessed day and weekend, and take care.